Gig back with another video. We are back with our Necromancer, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Rathma's ossified, or well, the Rathma's build, I guess. The Bones of Rathma set. There we go. And yeah, a lot of these Necromancer things are kind of hard to pronounce. But this is basically a pet build. The Necromancer has quite a few different variations of the pet build. There's a variation with the Bone Storm build. There's another variation with, let me see, what is it? There's another variation with the Tragul's Claws. So there's a bunch of different pet builds. I don't know if I'll make a video on every single one of them. But I may. Who knows? Depends on what you guys want. But what you're going to need is you're going to need the Rathma set. You're going to want the entire set. You don't want to use a Ring of Royal Grandeur. One thing I will say about this set, and there's a few different pet builds that I've tried so far, is they are all so squishy. No matter how you slice it, even if you're using, even if you're using Grizzly Tribute, unless you have a ton of life on hit, which I don't. I only have 19,000. Still, your toughness only gets to like 150 million, which isn't very much when you're trying to push higher greater rifts. And for comparison, my Bone Storm build is about the same quality of gear, and I can push 84 with that pretty easily. And I'm struggling on this one. I really am. It's very squishy. But we'll get into the build anyways, and I'll show you guys how it plays. Once you get better gear, you can probably push higher. Really learning the build and getting better at the build, too, will also help. So anyways, you're going to need the Rathma's full set. And you want to prioritize Skeletal Mage damage because your actual skeletons that you raise aren't really doing a ton of damage. Your biggest portion of damage comes from Skeletal Mage. So I've got Skeletal Mage damage on here. You'll notice when we're looking at some of these, they're not all, they're not rolled exactly. So yeah, my stats aren't super great on all these. I ended up, I keep running out of Veiled Crystals, so it makes it where I can't re-roll. But after you get the Rathma's set, then you're also going to want the Jessith set, which is this set scythe and set shield. And the set bonus, when your target of your command of skeletons dies, your skeletons are automatically commanded to attack another target. And then while your skeletons are commanded, all minions deal 400% increased damage. So that's a big damage boost. It's helpful. Your skeletons don't stay commanded after a group is done. So if I were to command something and they would attack and attack and attack, and then everything around you dies, they're no longer commanded. When you get back into another group, they're not automatically commanded again. You do have to command them, so it kind of has to be a chain reaction when fighting. But that's not a big deal. It only costs 50 essence, and generally in higher greater rifts, you're going to have a lot of minions. You're not going to be a lot of downtime. Although there is sometimes, because greater rifts still like to screw you over sometimes. For the bracers, we're going to be using ancient Parthian defenders. Parthian defenders. I keep saying Parthian. Just for that toughness from each enemy being stunned. Of course, we are using Bone Spike Sun Impact, so there's a stun coming from there. And our Enchantress is using the Windseeker in combination with a Wereward. And we are also using a Unity. I'll actually go over that later. I don't want to jump the gun. I guess I can go over the 6-piece set bonus of Rathma's. Your minions have a chance to reduce the cooldown of Army of the Dead by 1 second each time they deal damage. And when you've got all your skeletons up and all your skeletal mages up, that's a lot of chances. So your Army of the Dead is being cooled down pretty quick. The 4-piece set bonus, you gain 1% damage reduction for 15 seconds each time one of your minions deal damage, max of 50 stacks. So that's supposed to help you stay alive more in conjunction with your Dainty's Binding Belt. That's, you know, almost a It's almost 100% damage reduction, but it's not actually 100% because it's not additive. But it's still supposed to be a lot of damage reduction in conjunction with the unity that you're using. But you're still very, very squishy. I don't know if this build will be tweaked any or not. There was, back on the PTR, there was some kind of permanent invulnerability that you could use, but that's been patched, and since then I feel like this build, while it deals a ton of single target damage, the AoE damage isn't super great, and it's not bad, but it's not super great, and the toughness just isn't there. But then in the 6-piece set bonus, each active skeletal mage increases the damage of your minions and Army of the Dead by 250%. So you do need the full Rathma set. And then, of course, we went over the weapons and shield. You're also going to be needing a Crisbin Sentence. You can either have this equipped or in the cube. It doesn't really matter. If you don't have a high roll, which mine is actually, it's a little over halfway. It's not great, though. I'd recommend cubing it. And then you're also going to be using the Compass Rose and the Traveler's Pledge Endless Walk set. For the gems, you're going to be using Bane of the Trapped, and you're going to be using a Z's Stone of Vengeance. Damage you deal is increased by a certain percent for 10 yards, for every 10 yards between you and the enemy. Maximum of 31, or maximum of whatever percent it is that you have at level. Increased 50 yards. It's kind of nice because we are going to be wanting to keep our distance from the enemies as much as we can. In rifts and greater rifts, it does become hard at times. Especially, it seems like there's been a lot more mobs lately that have that suck-in ability. I can't think of what it's called, where they drag you in. And this build does not have mobility because you're not using Blood Rush. So it does get kind of annoying. But generally, we're going to try and stay away from enemies. The second bonus, though, the 20% chance on hit to stun enemies for 1 second, that is going to go super great with your Crisbin Sentence, which you deal the percent increased damage to slowed targets and triple that bonus against enemies affected by any other control impairing effect. So that'll go great with a stun. A stun does count as any other control impairing effect. And then, of course, you're going to want the Dainty's Binding. You gain an additional 46% damage reduction when there is an enemy afflicted by Decrepify, which we are using down here. And then for gems, I am using a Life Gem because cooldown reduction isn't super important with this build. And if you need more toughness, go for diamonds in here. But I'm using intelligence gems for now for more, for obviously more damage. So going over the skills, we're using Bone Spike, Sudden Impact. This is going to be your essence generator because you are going to be spending a little bit of essence with bone armor and skeletons. And yeah, those don't cost, oh, Decrepify does cost essence, but you're going to be spending a lot of essence with Skeletal Mage. So we are using Bone Spikes for that, and then we're using the Sudden Impact rune again to stun, to proc our Crisbin Sentence, triple damage. And we're using Bone Armor Dislocation. Again, another stun, and Bone Armor is great for reducing your damage taken. Another toughness skill. You would think between this and all of our other toughness skills would be super tough, but really you're not. And you may see that later on in the build. And then we're using Skeletal Mage, Skeletal Archer. And these guys deal 400% weapon damage as cold per attack. They last for 6 seconds, but we're using, I'll show you in the cube later, they'll last for 10 seconds. And Skeletal Archers also increase your attack speed by 3% for 5 seconds each time they deal damage up to a maximum of 10 stacks. The more damage version of this is you can use Singularity, consumes all essence to summon a powerful minion. The minion's damage is increased by 3% for every point of essence consumed. This is definitely the more damaged route, but it's harder to get all of your stacks up. If you have really good density, you can do it, especially because I am using the Shadow Hook. So if you have really good density, you can pop a skeletal mage, a singularity. It'll dump all of your essence. You can literally hit with bone spikes once in the middle because bone spikes are generating 5 additional essence, and it'll get you all the way back up. And so summon, bone spike, summon, bone spike, summon, bone spikes. And because of our Circle of Neluge's evolve, we're raising them very, very quickly. However, you can't just spam raise them like you can with the skeletal archers. So it's a little harder to do, but it's certainly the more damage route. I've done it, and it is, when you have good enough density to do it, it is insane the damage you put out. But the skeletal archers also put out great damage, and they increase your attack speed as well. So we're going with skeletal archers for this. Just keep that in mind if you want to try something else. Command skeletons, we're using freezing grasp again for the freeze, or aka stun. It kind of counts the same, to proc our Crisbin sentence. You can use frenzy. That's a fine rune too, but because we're not very tough, we really want as many stuns as we can get. Using Decrepify, Dizzying Curse, because again, for just another chance for enemies to be stunned. And it is just a 10% chance, but coupling with all of our other abilities, we're hoping to keep the enemy stunned for quite a while. And then we're using Army of the Dead. This is a wonderful skill. It has a big cooldown, though, 120 seconds. Raise a massive skeletal army to pummel the targeted location for 12,000 weapon damages physical in a 15-yard radius. We are using the Death Valley rune. This will pull all enemies into a smaller circle. It'll allow us to get some good density, and it'll allow us to some crowd control as well. So if we're on an elite pack and they're kind of spread out and we're trying to keep our distance, we can cast Army of the Dead, and then we can kind of run away and let our minions do their thing. For passive skills, these are kind of up in the air. Some of them you can kind of mix and match depending on how you want. I'm using Spreading Malediction. Receive a 1% damage bonus for each enemy affected by one of your curses. You can also use Grisly Tribute to try and stay alive more. You can use, where is it? Yeah, Overwhelming Essence is actually really good for what... Actually, we are going to switch to Overwhelming Essence because I have switched to the Shadow Hook. We'll go over the cube here in just a minute. So I'm going to use Overwhelming Essence, Spreading Malediction, where is it? And Grisly Tribute are also very viable. We're using Extended Servitude, again increasing the duration of our skeletal mages by 25%. So I think that gives us a total of about 12 seconds for them. Using Final Service is basically our cheat death. And then Rathma Shield, you cannot lose life for 4 seconds after using Land of the Dead, Army of the Dead, or Simulacrum. Yeah. And we will be using Army of the Dead as often as we can. So because of our Rathma's set bonus, the first 2-part set, we're gaining cooldown reduction on this. It just gives us more life, or more toughness rather. So that is the skills and the gear. Now the cube is also somewhat negotiable. For our weapon slot, I am using Shadow Hook. Every point of maximum essence increases your damage by 0.5%. And then Bone Spikes generate an additional 5 essence for each enemy hit. I'm using this because we get the damage bonus from the maximum essence, and then we are a little bit essence heavy with this particular pet build. So I want to be able to generate my essence back as fast as I can, because your skeletal mages still don't last very long. Even if they last 12 seconds, that's not a very long time, especially considering how long it takes to cast them. It takes about a second to cast each one, And so by the time you get up to 10, that's roughly 5 seconds. So your first set of skeletal mages only has about 7 seconds left, roughly. So we are using that. Another alternative is the Scythe of the Cycle. Your secondary skills deal 300% additional damage while Bone Armor is active. So this is going to give you a bigger damage boost than Shadowhook, but not to all of your skills, only to your secondary skills, which are basically your skeletal mages and your skeletons, things of that nature. So it is a bigger damage boost to your pets. It's not an overall damage boost, though, so your bone spikes wouldn't be benefiting for that. Of course, your bone spikes aren't really your main portion of damage anyways. So it's kind of up to you guys. Play around with both, whichever works better for your play style. There's absolutely nothing wrong with Scythe of the Cycle. It's actually the more damage output option, and I've run it both ways. So really, it's up to you guys. However, if you find you're managing your essence just fine, then definitely go with that. In the armor slot, we are using Tasker of Theo to increase our attack speed of our pets by 50%. This is increasing their damage. It's also increasing, if you are using Grizzly Tribute, it's also increasing your healing, because they're healing you for 10% of your life on hit. And the more they hit, the more they heal. And where were we? We were in the cube. And then we are using the Circle of Neluge's Evol. For our jewelry slot, you now raise an additional skeletal mage with each cast, and they last an additional 4 seconds. So that is, we can raise a maximum of 10. Of course, I'm out of essence now. But you can basically just hold that down and spam it until you get your maximum skeletal mages, and then while they're doing damage, like I said, your first set raised have probably about 7 seconds left by then. Then you can just sit there and do your bone spikes until you're completely full again. By the time you get completely full, your mages will start dropping off. You'll recast that again, and you'll just start raising them back up and repeat the process. In the midst of this, you do want to remember to cast your bone armor and decrepify. Some things that I've been having trouble with remembering the rotation. But that's definitely what you want to do. When it comes to Paragon points, you're going to want maximum essence. You're going to want movement speed for the mobility, of course, because we don't have any mobility skills. And then max out intelligence. If you don't have enough life, if you don't have at least 1 million or so, I would put some points in vitality. And then for offense, you're going to want critical hit chance, critical hit damage, attack speed, and cooldown reduction. For defense, you're going to want resist all, armor, life, and life regen. And then you're going to want life per hit, area damage, resource cost reduction, and gold find. So that is everything. I have done a 75 with this build. I'm going to just do a 70 to demonstrate it because it's some enemies you run into. It's like I said, it's very, very squishy. It does a ton of damage, especially single target damage. But I don't want to be running through dying every 5 seconds. So we're just going to do a 70 for now. And yeah, let's get in it. So we're going to cast that, get our bone armor up, command our skeletons. One thing I will say that I forgot about the legendary gem is our pets doing 90% more damage, or doing more damage and then taking supposed to take 90% less damage. That is, whoops, I used my potion. That is, I don't know if it's glitched or it's just not actually going to work, but the 90% damage reduction is not proccing on your skeletons at this time. Try and get your command skeletons on the yellow. And we can use Land of the Dead. Actually, should have used Land of the Dead earlier. Again, make sure you remember all of your skills. And we just got saved. We need to get our skeleton mages back up because they are our main damage source. Oh no! And we're dead. Alright, let's get our skeletal mages back up. Ah, and we're already saved again. So I've been getting a lot of horrible groups. The arcane, the frozen, the trapped. Have you guys noticed that? I feel like rifts have been reworked to be super annoying now. I don't know if it's just me or what. Let's get our skeletal mages going. And also when I'm summoning skeletal mages, I'm also clicking my bone spikes, so I'm kind of automatically getting back essence in the middle of that. And let's use Decrepify, Army of the Dead. And you can see if you're watching, you can see our skeletons are dying fairly rapidly sometimes. Now they do automatically come back. You don't have to worry about raising them yourself, but that is your pet gem, the Enforcer, not reducing the damage that they take. And we're gonna have to heal, and now we're stuck. I really do miss mobility. If you can work Blood Rush into this build somehow, it's certainly recommended. Blood Rush is fantastic for survivability and mobility. And there are plenty of different pet builds out there. As I said in the beginning of the video, I may do some other videos on some other pet builds. There's a Bone Storm version that uses Bone Storm and pets. And so that one would have Blood Rush. And I did briefly try it, and I still, even with Bone Storm active, I found myself very squishy. And I just thought of something, actually. I said something about the Unity earlier. My follower is wearing the Unity, but I am not. I messed that part up. So don't worry about that. Instead of a Unity in your follower, if you're not wearing a Unity yourself, you want an Oculus Ring. I do not have that on right now. So you can see our skeletal mages, or our skeletons rather, are staying commanded. So much ranged. Let's pull everything in here. You don't have to worry too much about using your Army of the Dead. Like I said, it goes cooldown pretty quick because of your Rathma's 2-piece set bonus. Try and keep those skeletal mages up the best you can, because they are your biggest source of damage. And we might die here because we're stuck. Yeah, you can see our skeletal mages dying there. I will go over that Unity thing at the end of the video, if I remember, of course. I'm horrible at remembering things. As is proof by the fact that I forgot to talk about it when I was talking about when I first mentioned it.
Give it more time.
Remember, we're trying to keep our distance from a lot of the enemies. Doing the best we can, anyways. And you also want to keep your bone armor stacks up. And we're gonna, oh, we didn't get frozen. Oh, we got saved by final service. You do summon your skeleton mages fairly quickly, so once they start to drop off, they will all start to drop kind of all at once. It would be nice if they lasted a little longer, like maybe 30 seconds or something. I know there's been a lot of people have kind of complained that they don't last long enough. But the build does not suffer from damage, from lack of damage. It certainly does not. It's mainly just the toughness. You can see we're at about 148 million. Of course, sounds like a lot, but you know, if you play D3, it's not. Especially if you're trying to push higher grade rifts. You need 3, 4, 5, and beyond on your toughness. You can see when all of our minions actually start attacking, even an elite, they just melt. And again, you don't have to worry about casting Army of the Dead. You can see, even at 120 seconds, it's already halfway down, and we just cast it. It would kind of be nice if you had just a, instead of just command skeletons, if you had a command minions, so all of your minions would be commanded. And uh-oh, we are stuck. We're stuck. We're stuck. Ah, we're stuck. We're stuck again. No, let me out. Don't die. Come on. Alright. Where is he? So I've also been having the Rift Guardian appear in really strange places. This one wasn't too bad. I had one appear on floor 1 the other day. I was on floor 3, just like this. And the Rift Guardian appeared on floor 1. It was completely ridiculous. But yeah, there is the Rathma's set build, at least one of the variations. There are different variations you can do. And you actually don't want the Unity because you are using the Circle of Neluja's Evol and the Crisbin Sentence. So instead, what you want on your follower is a Oculus Ring. The Unity was for a different build, guys. Sorry, I did not mean to say wear the Unity for this build. You are not wearing the Unity for this build because you can't really sacrifice Crisbin Sentence, and you really don't want to sacrifice Neluja's Evol because your main damage is coming from skeletal mages, and you want to get those 10 out as quick as possible. So sorry about that mistake earlier on, guys, talking about that. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Give this a try. And of course, there will be more Necromancer builds coming in the future. And yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like and a comment down below. If you play this build, if you've pushed really high, or if you figured something out, or if you see that I missed something, please let me know in the comments. I always love constructive criticism or tips on how to do things better. And if you're not subscribed, guys, and you want to see more, please subscribe. I am super thankful. I love all of my subscribers. Until next time, guys, more good stuff to come. Take care.